Good morning and welcome to It's How You'll Be Remembered. I am Julie Jones, your host and the CEO of Today's Professionals. And this is National Business Etiquette Week. And so I have invited my friend Tony Caruso back to have a conversation about business etiquette because she is a fellow business etiquette consultant. Tony,
Yay.
thanks for coming.
I love it. And I love this subject. You know me, we go deep, you and I talking about etiquette.
I know we do, because we see the big picture, and not everybody sees the big picture.
Right.
And so I love the fact that we celebrate National Business Etiquette Week because it's just something I think that we forget about, And I don't know about you, but when I tell people about etiquette or I mention it, a lot of times people are like, "What? Do we still do that?" And it's not the fancy, grandmother's house with doilies and you have to be all prim and proper. That's not what etiquette is anymore, right?
Well, and etiquette is an old word, and people think, oh, it's I got to keep my knees crossed, and I've got to have my hands down, and I got to sit up straight, and it's
Yeah,
all that. And let me tell you, those things are important.
yeah,
But business etiquette, it's more of a sales conversation. It's more of how are people looking at you and deciding if they're going to know, like, and trust you. And a lot of that has to do non-verbally, and non-verbally has to do with etiquette,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Because we really watch what you do, and
Right.
people are always watching you. We talked about that a little bit before we went on. You know, you are always being observed. Everything you do,
Exactly.
and in today's world with social media and things that you post and things that you say, you have to be really careful because it all impacts your image and your professionalism and the way that people see you. Right?
Exactly. And we didn't talk about this, but I saw a post yesterday, and it was a young woman, and she was talking, and she's talking all about her life and everything, which is great, wonderful. But in the picture, she was flipping off the audience, basically. And it was like, you didn't need to do that. I get it. But when you're a business owner,
Mhm.
people are looking at you. And is that the type of person that you're going to want to do business with? So you have to say, what you think might be funny, or you're making a point, or there are people out there that are looking at you saying, oh, not my person. And maybe
Right.
they aren't. You're not for everybody. And I get that. But
Yeah.
just realize that little things that you do that you might think are, oh, it's funny or whatever, it's not so funny to other people. And people in this day and age, oh my goodness, they get triggered all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you have to be really careful. And I think social media is one of the reasons that people don't get jobs
Oh,
is because
absolutely.
employers are doing a deep dive when they're thinking about hiring you. They want to make sure that you fit within their culture and their values. So they go into your Instagram, they go into your LinkedIn, they go into your Facebook, and they look to see what you're posting.
Well,
And
and you take that one step further. We're not even talking interviewing. We're talking I look for speakers for stages. And when I'm looking at speakers, I'm going into their Instagram and their Facebook and their LinkedIn, and I'm seeing how are they presenting themselves? Are they appropriate for the audience I'm going to put them in front of? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. And maybe my audience isn't right for them. But what you're posting is what I am judging you on.
yeah,
So how do you want to be, and I hate to say it, judged? But that's what we're looking at.
yeah,
Is what you're saying in alignment with my audience? Are you throwing, I mean, and I don't want to say this, but religion, politics, whatever it is, you are
yeah.
going to alienate 50% of the audience if you go one way, and that's how you go. Now, let me tell you, if you are a faith-based person and your audience is faith-based, and that's only the people you want to talk to, then by all means,
That's
your
your
feed
audience.
can be totally faith-based. But if that is not your audience, and you don't want to alienate people of other religions or other beliefs, or people who are, maybe they're spiritual, but they're not Jesus faith based, that kind of thing, then you have to be careful about what you put out there.
Yeah. I think it comes back to the evaluation of who are you and how do you show up authentically, and who are you wanting to reach, really.
Right.
And so you have to understand then, when you decide who is my audience, and you decide I want to show up authentically, you have to niche that down, and you have to get rid of all the noise out there. But if you are a job seeker, that's kind of a different. If you're an entrepreneur and you're putting your message out there to your audience, that's one thing. But if you're a job seeker, especially if you're coming out of college,
Yeah.
if you have all of your pictures and things that are you partying in college, then an employer is going to look at that and go, well, they partied through college. I know my daughter, and this has been years ago, pre-COVID even, when she came out of college, she took all of her social media down. She just said, I just taken it all down because I was in college, and now I'm making that step into professionalism. And it took her a while, to get it back up. And now her social media is completely different. But I think all students coming out of college have to do the evaluation of, I'm no longer in college. It's that college to career transition, that we speak about when we think about what you're putting out there. Yeah, because it's being
Exactly.
watched. Yeah.
I remember talking to a bunch of young kids, and I was saying, what if you're at your grandmother's house and you and your cousins are sitting around and you're all drinking soda and you're playing around and taking pictures, and everybody's got their red cup in their hand, and you might be like been tripped or whatever, and you're kind of falling, and someone takes a picture and you think it's funny. We don't know what's in that red cup. And our first inclination is that red cup has liquor in it. You're
Mhm.
sitting there drinking 7 Up with
Mhm.
your cousins, but we don't know that. You're partying with young people and you're drinking,
Yeah.
and you think it's a cute picture. How is that being looked at as a
Yeah.
potential job? And then I remember talking to a gentleman who was a fingerprint. He would do your fingerprints, and I was getting my fingerprints done because I was going to be speaking to the Girl Scouts, and I had to
Yeah.
pass their vetting process.
Right.
And I was having a conversation with him. We were talking about etiquette, and he said he had a young man that came in to get his fingerprints done, and his whole life he dreamed of being a cop. And so when they vetted him, he had a picture with his cousin at a barbecue, and he had his arms around. There were four guys, and they were just, sitting there barbecuing. And it turns out 2 of those guys, who were his cousin's friends, were ex-felons. They didn't hire him as a cop because he associates with ex-felons. He didn't even know those guys. He didn't know
No.
their background.
Yeah.
So,
It happens.
it happens every single day.
Yeah. And people can change, but people that are, looking at your life, in which social media is so huge now. We put everything out there.
Right.
That's what they're using as criteria, is do your values match our values? And so
Exactly.
yeah. So
Exactly.
it's a tough call, social media these days. And so you have to really, I think social media actually needs a strategy these days. You have to think about, what am I putting out there? And so
There's a class we can do in college, for
right,
seniors. Yeah.
right. Social media.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's clean up that social media before you get that diploma.
exactly. 100%. Well, we talk a lot about etiquette, and there is an etiquette, especially in the sales, when you're in your job, in your sales and customer service. There is etiquette around the conversation. There's etiquette around how we overcome objections in sales, and how we have that conversation. And then also in customer service, if somebody calls and they're upset, there's an etiquette around that, because etiquette really is like, there's a procedure, a process of how do you follow up, or how do you handle these things that come at you. And so a lot of it comes with a comfort level of, your heart centered. Carl Graf, it was a mentor of mine for years, and I always remember him saying, you can say anything to anyone as long as you say it correctly, meaning you say it in a way that they hear it, and you, from your heart, you let them know that you care about them. And so that's really one of the ways that we see business etiquette being, so important in the business world. Tell us, because you talked a lot about, you've already spoken about how you get people to go on stages. You're an event planner and you hire speakers. Um, how are you using etiquette around the conversations when you are bringing people in?
Um, I am always looking at, now we always know that your body language is 97% of what, or 93% of what we see.
Mhm.
So I am big on body language and how you're presenting yourself when we're talking.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, how much are you listening?
Mhm.
Now, God gave us two ears and a mouth to listen twice as much as one mouth, and listen twice as much as we
Right.
talk. And I think that that's lost. I think a lot of times in that sales conversation, we're so busy trying to sell and trying to close that we're not asking the questions and we're not listening to their answers and what their needs are.
Mhm.
And I believe that's huge when it comes to interviewing, when it comes to the sales conversation, when it comes to customer service. If you're not listening and letting the people who are calling up and they're upset at whatever it is that happened, they couldn't move their website from A to B and they're having trouble, and you're GoDaddy, and you're not listening to them,
Yeah.
they want to be listened to. Just acknowledge them. Yes, I hear what you're saying. I totally understand. I can understand the frustration. Let's get this taken care of for you. You
Yeah.
know, listen to them, make them feel heard, and then try and help them.
Yeah.
Listen to them, find out what their problem is and their mistake they're making, and then how you can solve that problem.
Right.
That's your close, when you're doing sales. And the same thing comes with when you're interviewing for a job. It's a sales
Yeah.
conversation. You're selling yourself, but you're also having to buy them. So
Yeah.
make sure that you are listening to what they're saying. And then you say, you know what? I love that your company does that. And I hear what you're saying about the value of integrity and honesty in your business. I truly believe in that. Instead of going, I da 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 da, and I da 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 da.
Mhm. I know exactly what you're saying. When I had the plumbing company, I remember a lady who was very upset with me. And she was upset with me because of the way that the whole call went down. We had a new plumber and we were just really getting him onboarded and it was just kind of an unfortunate set of circumstances. And so she called and she was really upset. And I listened to her. I talked to her for over an hour and just I said, look, our mission is to have happy customers. We want people to love us, and we dropped the ball here, and I'm going to take the blame for it. And so we were able to work it out. But what happened was, because she called, because she was upset with us and she called, she gave me an opportunity to make it right. And so
Right.
with that, then we got a 5-star review from her because she said, look, the call didn't go great, but the way they handled it afterwards did go great. And so I know that they stand by what they say they're going to do. And that to me meant more than anything, was to be able to work through that. But I gave the time. I shut my door and I put do not disturb on my door. And I said, I'm going to talk to her and find out what I did and how we can be better as not necessarily what I did, but like how the whole situation unfolded and what we can do to move forward. And that was really it. My heart was in the right place, and that's what saved that customer.
Well,
When
exactly. And I remember having a boss when I was just starting out in the corporate world. And he said to me, Tony, don't make excuses for what you do. If you
yeah,
did something wrong, own up to it,
that's
apologize for it, and we can move on. And that literally changed everything for me. Hey, listen, I made a mistake. I'm
it.
so sorry. The company did that. Yeah, our fault. Let's make it right.
Yeah.
People want to be heard and they want to be acknowledged that
Mhm.
their pain is understood.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, I think most people understand that no one is perfect.
Right.
And there are just, and no matter how hard we try to do the right thing, sometimes there's just things that slip through the cracks or whatever. And this was a situation where we needed a new person to be out in the field before he was ready.
Yeah.
And so, and it just, it was, and that was a valuable lesson to me. And so, but the fact that I was able to say, you know what, we messed up, I understand, where you're coming from. Let me make it right. And so it was, we were able to work that out. So let me say, if you are watching this live, be sure and say hello, drop a comment in, let us know your stories about sales and customer service, or anything about business etiquette and how it has helped you, or valuable lessons that you have learned in communicating with people as we celebrate National Business Etiquette Week. All right, we know that this is important. The conversations around, sales and customer service is important. But I'm hearing a lot about phone and email etiquette. This is a huge one. The emails, especially for young people who are coming from college, they're making that transition. This is something that I hear time and time again.
The fact that you even put college and email etiquette together, because college kids don't even email. They're all texting. So
Well, that's
it's a
part of
huge
it.
issue.
It is an issue because you don't, when in an email, that's a formal communication. So there is some formal guidelines that go with that. Your greeting, the way it's laid out, the words that you use, because words are important, and you want to use proper grammar. You don't want to use language from text messaging where you're abbreviating words. You want to make it formal. But there's also one thing, the reply all.
Oh man. Yeah.
Man, that gets people in trouble, especially when you don't read who's on the thread
Yeah.
and you hit reply all and you make a derogatory comment about someone who's on the thread. That has caused so many problems. As a matter of fact, I know of two people who lost their jobs
Whoa.
over that.
Well, and I know that I lost a relationship with someone because they decided to they were upset with me. Okay, fine. Call
Yeah.
me, email me, but they went over my head and not only emailed my supervisor, emailed the CEO of the company, and then emailed a bunch of people in the company. Now they came out not looking well about the whole thing, but if
Yeah.
you've got an issue with someone, especially in a corporate situation, go through the ladder. If you're not getting help from the person that is your supervisor and it's not getting anywhere, then you can take it to the next step. But don't jump that, because it's going to bite you when in the back end.
So that is exactly where we start to train. This is where I've had to learn this myself, and it's taken me all these years to learn to really have conversations, because people who are conflict avoidant are upset, but they don't know how. They don't have a skill set to come to you and say, Tony, I'm upset, or I have an issue that I want to work through with you. They don't know how to do that. That the art of the conversation is really something that we need to focus on and teach. And that's where I think phone etiquette comes in as well, because then people want to oftentimes email rather than pick up a phone and say, let's talk, or schedule a meeting to say, let's talk. I think this is where people really can boost themselves when they start to learn the art of the conversation. They can really get promoted. They can really, what am I looking about? Elevate, elevate their image with people when you are good at conversations.
Well, and you think about it, it was my son is 25, and I think when he was 12, 11 or 12, he went from Cub Scouts to Boy Scouts. Now, when you get to Boy Scouts, they have to make the phone call, set up the scheduling to get a badge, whatever it was. And my son was terrified. He did not know how to talk on a phone. And I was oblivious to it because we grew up with the phone. That's all we had. We didn't have texting. The phone was attached to the wall and you had to take turns on the phone.
Yeah.
So I remember it. I was just kind of like going, oh my gosh, I really let him down. He doesn't know how to talk on a phone. And think about it now, the kids that are 20 and they're even 15, they don't know how to pick up a phone and dial a number. All they know how to do is text. So I think we're doing our young people a disservice by not having them pick up a phone, talk to grandma, talk to uncle, talk to people, dial numbers, get used to talking on a phone.
Yeah. Well, to add to that, I saw a video a couple of weeks ago where somebody is actually coaching our young people on how to pick up the phone and make a dental appointment, because the anxiety that our young people today are having in communication face to face, the phone is really difficult. And so that is a skill set. If you want to be successful, learn to have these conversations, learn to pick up the phone. And it's something that may be scary at first if you're not used to it, but it is something that over time you'll get used to, and it really is important because it's part of the conversation. Because in our world and what we do, AI means actual interaction. You have to actually interact with humans in order
Exactly.
to be successful. I want to say Linda Soares says hello. She says, "Good morning, ladies. Had no idea the infamous Tony Caruso was your guest this week. A very pleasant surprise." Yes, of course she is, because she is my fellow etiquette consultant as well. So thank you, Linda, for chiming in. If you are catching this live, be sure and say hello to us and let us know how you feel about business etiquette. I want to hear some stories of how your knowledge of etiquette and how you show up helped you in the business world. So yeah, I think we are spot on with the communication and etiquette, the etiquette that surrounds the professionalism and the image. And I want to also touch on image and professionalism, because this is something that really image is the way others see you. And so when we have a first impression, we make a first impression, which is made almost instantaneously. It's 5 to 7 seconds when you see somebody. You decide whether or not you like that person or not, or you trust that person. And so it's image. And so one of the things that we use to evaluate or make the judgment at that time is the way that you look. And so I always encourage people, even though you are in a casual environment, you can still look nice by putting the outfit together. Jeans are fine in most cases. I mean, there are times I wear jeans. I know you've worn jeans.
I love jeans.
Yeah, jeans are great. But how do you put it together? And how are you showing up in a professional setting? Um, so, what are you seeing around professional dress for that first impression?
Well, it's different for me. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs, they work at home. And a lot of them run different types of businesses. And I remember there was one in California when I was in Calabasas, California. We had one member who I adore, as my friend to this day. And she was the owner of a fitness studio. And she would show up to these luncheons in these like stretch black pants and a little shirt that had her little logo here.
Yeah.
And she's like, nobody talks to me like a business owner. Nobody sees me as a business owner. I said, it's
Mhm.
because you don't look like one. You look like you work for the fitness institute. You
Industry.
don't look like you own it. You need to buy a dress. She goes, I have a closet full of dresses and corporate stuff. I said, start wearing it. And it changed everything for her,
Yeah.
because people are looking at you. You are it like 93% nonverbal people. That's what you wear and how you stand and control yourself. So you really need to show up as a professional. If you are a business owner, you have to look like the business owner. Now, I was always told, when you're interviewing for a job, dress for the job you want. Don't dress for the job you're interviewing for. So if you're going in and you're interviewing for instance, I was going to be an assistant in an ad agency, an in-house ad agency, and they were funky. So I had these leopard high heel shoes on, and they were all laughing at my shoes. They loved them. Where'd you get them? And it was this whole
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
And they couldn't pull the trigger. They couldn't hire me because their CFO had a problem with the amount of money I was asking for.
Mhm.
They said he wants to meet with you. Well, when I went to meet with the CFO, my shoes were navy blue, my skirt was navy blue, my jacket was navy blue. I had a white blouse on, I had simple pearl earrings. I was toned down and I dressed corporate, and I and got the job.
You got the job.
So if I would have walked in there, this funky chick with these leopard shoes,
Yeah.
He wouldn't have respected me the way that I needed to be respected, but
Mhm.
I knew that I had to show up corporate because that was the position I was going
Was he
for.
going for it, right? And they're in the creative industry. A lot of times you can't, like, those funky shoes are so fun. I mean, I love great shoes, or if you dress, put the outfit together with jewelry, or just something, you can be trendy and professional at the same time, but there's an art form to it. And so we're going to talk about that later this week as well. I want to
Well,
say,
isn't it? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I believe it's true that you look at the website. How are the people in the office dressed? And then dress to that aesthetic. If
yeah,
you're comfortable with it and that's the environment you want to work in, you need to look like everybody else in the room.
I agree. And you can also ask, what is the dress code? And then dress a little bit above the dress code. Because you don't want to come in looking like you're already in. You want to come
Right.
in with your best foot forward. Don't make assumptions. But a lot of companies too will tell you don't wear a suit, which is great. I mean, and suits are not always necessary. So, hello, Douglas from Chicago. He says, hopefully my Facebook pic is a good interview look when necessary. It looks like you're toasting with champagne. Are you
Yeah.
celebrating, Douglas?
He's
Yeah,
already celebrating he got the job before he even gets there.
there
I
you go.
love it.
There you go. The celebration. So yeah, so I think that you always have to put your best foot forward, and even if it is a casual event, you can be comfy casual and still look really nice.
Yeah.
I think I've had this conversation before for women. Spanx makes dress pants that feel so comfortable, but they look really great on, and so you can if you put a little bit of effort into it, you can dress really nice, and you don't even have to spend a lot of money, because there are so many great designers out there that are in stores that are the less expensive stores, but you
Right.
can still look good, but put the effort in. I think it's more about the complete look than it is about just the outfit itself.
Well, and it's not just the clothes, it's the hair, it's the makeup, it's the accessories.
Mhm.
It's all the piercings, like, if I don't know if we want to go there, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying that if you are look and see what their clientele looks like, well, who they're looking for
Mhm.
to do sales with, if it's very corporate, then you have to look more corporate. If it's really trendy and creative, then you need to look creative.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't wear a three-piece suit all buttoned up and everything going in to be the creative director for an ad agency that,
Mhm.
Monster Drinks or whatever. It's
Right.
not going to work.
Yeah, because that's not the audience, right?
Right.
It's not the job. That's right. So I always say you have to take your personal brand and blend it with the company brand, because if what shows up as unexpected, then there's trust that's lost immediately in that first impression. So yeah, so I mean, etiquette is so much more than just knowing what fork to use. Although, thank you to Dardemetrius Kilgore, who did have me out to his summer camp for Finding Me Academy Global. We had a dining etiquette for his elementary school's students' summer camp yesterday. We catered lunch in for them, and we taught them how to use a knife and fork and what to do with their napkin. And they absolutely loved it. So it was a lot of fun. I don't work a lot with elementary students, but it was fun. They were so, so cute.
Well, think about this. We have spent a half hour talking about business etiquette, and we never once brought up a fork or a spoon.
We never
So
did.
it's so much more.
It's so much more. Linda says the first step is going to the person that you have a conflict with. Yes. And that's that we were talking about, that having the conversation, and that's a skill set, that I work with. If you have issues with that conversation, that is part of my coaching program, is teaching people how to do that, because you have to overcome what's in here. I shared the story on stage at Texas Businesswomen this past weekend about how when I left education and came into the business world, in my heart, I was still a teacher. So that was what was in my head. And so that's what showed up. And so with that, people didn't see me as a business owner. They saw me as a teacher, because that's the way I was showing up. And in that, there was a big learning curve there in learning how to become the CEO and show up from inside. And so that is something that that I work with. And I have a free 3-day event coming up July 7th, 8th, and 9th. If anyone is interested, comment me and I will send you information on how you can join in on that free class on image and business etiquette, because it's going to be a fun time. Tony, this has gone by so fast.
It has gone fast. Well, you and I, we could talk for hours. I mean, just saying.
I know. And we do.
Yeah.
But you have a big event coming up this week with eWomen. The summit is coming up in
2
this
days.
Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is the year end for Sandra. She's winding up her tour, right here in
Right.
Dallas. Yeah. So we're excited about that. And it is a sold out event, but
Yeah.
if it's something that you think, oh shoot, I didn't register, you can reach out to Tony and say, hey, do you have anybody not coming? Is there a spot that I can take? Because there may be some last minute things that where people don't show up. So anyway, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday and seeing Sandra on Thursday. And thank you so much for participating in National Business Etiquette Week with us. This is so much fun. And it is important that we all put our best foot forward every day. If we want to live the life that we want to live, it starts with us, right?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I so enjoy having our conversations, especially in public.
Yeah, always. Thank you so much. And we'll see you tomorrow on
Absolutely.
us. All right. Talk to you soon.